Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon, USA metropolitan area. Now, for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is that we have decided to talk about this evening. And this evening we'll be talking about fossil fuels and the Columbia Gorge. Fossil fuels and the Columbia Gorge. I have a hard time with ELs. And you are Natasha? No.
No, I'm Ryan. Yes, yes.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm feeling good. Thank you for having me today.
You're looking good, you are. And
Nakisha.
Nakisha,
Nathan.
I'll remember next time.
It's okay.
And how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
You're not nervous?
No, I'm not.
Whoa, man.
You're setting me at ease.
I'm
so.
the only one that's always nervous. Yeah. It's going to be a good show. What you guys are talking about is so important, particularly with the new administration we have in Washington, D.C., and the way the votes are going in France and all across the world. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As you know, the show goes in two major parts. I'll be talking to you about who you are personally, so the viewers have an idea where you're coming from when you voice opinions and have things you want to say. Yep. And the second half is the subject of the show, fossil fuels and the Columbia Gorge. And you've got a lot of notes there, I can see, so we'll get going pretty fast here, see what's going on. Probably we'll take maybe not a half an hour for the first half of the show because there's two of you, and we'll go through that rather quickly so that we have more time to talk about the issues that we'll be covering. And he's so darn good. I've seen him in other situations, you betcha. I like that red beard, too.
You like it, too?
Yeah, not the only one. Sure.
And you guys have been together for a while, doing the kind of work you're doing.
We have.
That's good. All right, with that said, let's get started here. And if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, you can say, I don't want to answer that, or get lost or whatever, because I rarely make a mistake like that. And when I do now and then, I have to remind somebody, you don't have to answer that, just cancel that, because I may ask you a few questions that are kind of off the wall because they're designed to elicit from you something spontaneous for the most part. So people have an idea who this real human being is about.
Right.
And so, when and who shall be my first victim? You? Or
I'm happy to jump right in.
And when and where were you born, Ryan?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland?
I was born and raised in Northeast Ohio the first 20 or so years of my life.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Why were you born?
Because my parents didn't take precautions.
I thought they'd have a higher purpose for you, right?
No, my parents were older and were not planning on having children, and they got hit with a double whammy because I'm a twin. So
wow.
They weren't planning on children, and my mom got pregnant, and then they went to the doctor for the first ultrasound and got the second biggest surprise of their life in realizing there were two babies inside rather than
both
just
boys?
One. No, I'm a fraternal twin. I have a twin sister.
Uh-huh. All right. And anything significant about your national or cultural heritage worth mentioning for the viewers?
Not really all that noteworthy. Most of my ancestors were Anglo, English and Irish and Scottish. Immigrated. Most of my grandparents, most of my great-grandparents were the immigrants, I think, to the United States. If I remember, it's more or less accurate. So, yeah.
No African ancestry?
Way, way back, because everybody has African ancestry.
I was going to
way
apologize for that. Yeah, missing something.
But none recently, no. Not recently.
Yeah, and a religious preference, do you have one of those?
I'm an atheist, so I don't have any religious
Did you ever have a religious preference?
No, my mother took us to a Baptist church for a while when we were younger. My father is a Unitarian Universalist. I went to his Unitarian church a little bit when I was young. But none of it really stuck, and I wasn't getting anything out of it, so they didn't make us keep going, which I'm very grateful to them. And yeah, both my sister and I are both atheists. Yeah.
Are you an atheist or an atheist?
Well, I suppose it depends on what exactly you mean by that, but of course atheist just means atheist. It just means you don't believe in any religions or gods or anything.
Well, because I was a Roman Catholic kid, going to be a priest and went to the seminary like that, and then I learned the difference between being an atheist pejorative, and an atheist, which lends a little dignity or something, you know.
I'm an atheist.
Atheist. And your formal education.
The highest education I've received is a Bachelor of Arts in Communications from Allegheny College in Meadville, Pennsylvania, so just across the border from Ohio, about half an hour south of Erie, PA.
Other education besides formal education in university?
Yeah. Well, I think I'd probably have to thank my parents most for that, particularly my father, who got me interested in politics at a very young age, and the nuances of the justice system or the counter-justice system, depending on how you want to phrase it. But also my mother, because my mother was a teacher. She taught 8th grade English and a little bit of history and Greek mythology, but overall she was an English teacher. And so she also taught me in my day-to-day life, so I'm most grateful to them. Other than that, I'd have to say the authors of the many books I've read, environmentalists like Edward Abbey and folks like him. I got my start in environmentalism not long after graduating college by joining up with the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society.
Yes.
I believed I talked with you about that last time I was on the show
a
few years ago. And I got a lot of education with them.
That's the reason I asked the question, yeah.
And Paul Watson, who's the captain of Sea Shepherd. The leader of Sea Shepherd, so I learned a lot from him. So, and from a lot of other people. Probably the biggest mentor in my life, though, is a man named Smitty. Tom Smith is his full name, but Smitty is what everybody calls him. He lives and did work in Austin, Texas, where I lived before moving here. And he was the head. He just retired this year, but he was the executive director of Public Citizen Texas, and I worked for him for 5 or 6 years. And he taught me more than almost anybody else in my life, other than my parents, I guess. And just was, if I had to pick somebody who fit the term mentor, it would be him. It would be Smitty. So.
You're liberal bona fides, how do you say it?
Bona fide.
Bona fide.
Liberal.
Yeah, really got it. Yeah. And you're still working at what you enjoy doing.
Yeah, yeah, I'm still an environmentalist, still an organizer and an activist. Have been more or less for about 10 years going on. Yeah, now I work for a small nonprofit environmental organization called Friends of the Columbia Gorge. Been working for them pretty much since I moved here to the Pacific Northwest.
They give you a few nickels to survive on?
So, a few nickels here and there. Yeah.
You have a partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife?
This lady right here. So she's my partner. So, yeah, and has been for 10 years.
Oh, really? So you're,
yeah.
oh, wonderful. That's wonderful.
Power couple, right?
Yeah, that's what they say. That's what we hear.
Yes.
Just good to hear.
What is that in your ear?
It's a mermaid earring.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where's yours?
I had pierced ears. No, I'm kidding. I didn't have pierced ears. No, I never had pierced ears. No tattoos, no pierced ears. So no pierced nose, nothing. I guess I'm kind of boring that way.
The beard takes care of that.
The beard takes care of it.
Any children?
No, no children.
Any political persuasion? Need I ask you that? Are you a Trump supporter? Or?
Yeah, no. I'd say, I support, I don't know if I would say I am an adherent of any one political party. If I had to choose one party, I'd choose the Green Party probably. Yeah. I've mostly been independent politically throughout my life, but I consider myself a progressive, and an activist and that kind of thing.
Are you involved with the deep state?
The deep states?
Yes.
The deep south, you mean?
The
or
deep state.
So, the deep state.
That's a way of looking at the political scene on the world stage.
Oh, okay.
There's the administration in Washington and other systems around the world. Then there's a deep state, deep in the background, and they are the ones who decide, bottom line, what's going to be happening with an administration anywhere in the world.
Yeah, like the lobbyists.
Google
and
deep state. Oh, I gotcha. You didn't know what the deep state was. Google deep state. It's an enjoyable read.
Sure thing.
Yeah.
Some people like the Koch brothers, folks, and other wealthy people who control.
But they hide. And occasionally there'll be members in both states.
Yeah.
But the deep state is the one that really, bottom line, has control over what's really going to happen because they own the representatives and the senators and
the money, basically.
But thank you.
Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Memberships in political, social, and civic organizations, and you'll be talking about some of those as we go through this. You want to wait and talk about it later on, or now?
No, we can bring it up now. Member that I'm personally a member of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I belong to a number of environmental groups. I think I gave dues 1 year to the Green Party. That was it. But I've been a member on and off of let's see, Defenders of Wildlife, Public Citizen, the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, Planned Parenthood, which is a little different from the others. But I've been a member of them before, and I support their work. Yeah. I was for a while a supporter of Children International, right? Is that? Yeah. So that too. Yeah, groups like that.
Yeah. Persons from the past, or even alive today, that you look up to or admire a lot. Any names come to mind?
Oh, I guess recently, the first person who springs to mind when you say people I look up to right now would probably be Bernie Sanders.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
This is me too.
So, I don't agree with him on every single thing, but you're never going to agree with anybody on everything. But of current political leaders who are in D.C. these days, I think he's about as good as it gets. So there's a few that come close to him, but he's about as good as it gets.
Are there any people in the Trump administration that you particularly look up to or admire? You can give a straight face on that. I'm not going to have any provocative questions for you by the time we get through with him.
Are there any people in the Trump administration who I look up to?
Don't even.
Maybe because they're taller than I am. But that would be the only reason why I would look up to them.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you see in the mainstream media? Is it left, center, or rightish, generally speaking, the corporate media, the media that we are aware of?
Where do I think they fall?
Yeah.
Oh, I think they're very conservative. I think the catchphrase of the liberal media is a misnomer. I think that what is described as the liberal media, like, Rachel Maddow, for example, she's not at all that radical or progressive, really. She sometimes will bring up issues that few other people are willing to talk about, but when you really talk about delving into really progressive ideals and ideology and what needs to be done, socialist democracy, things like that, someone like her is only scratching the surface. So for me, see, you brought up communications, and that's my degree. So,
of course. How about Amy Goodman?
Amy Goodman's great. I don't really consider her mainstream, though, because Democracy Now! I kind of consider as alternate media.
Yes.
Not a mainstream media. I love Amy Goodman. I think she's great. But of the mainstream media, the best of them are centrist at best. The rest of them, like Fox News, for example, and that was really Fox News's great achievement, was they swung the perception of the reality of media far to the right, so the perception of media has shifted left. So everybody thinks the media is liberal and elite, but really it's been shifted way to the right by Fox News and Murdoch and the other guy, what's his face? The other guy at News Corp, Murdoch's buddy. I forget his name, but you know who those people.
Yeah.
Dan Rather?
No, not Dan.
No,
he's not the guy at News Corp. But you're asking what I think of Dan Rather.
Yeah.
How about
I think Dan Rather's pretty cool, but again, I think he's mostly centrist. He's not a radical. He's not Amy Goodman, for example. Even Amy Goodman isn't that radical. She's just, compared to the mainstream media, she's radical. So
alternative media. What do you listen to or read or get?
I mostly get my information from social media and news sources like Democracy Now! Or oftentimes I end up, in terms of mainstream media, getting my news from foreign websites like The Guardian. The Guardian is one of my go-to websites for news. There are some cool, more local ones. Vice is a good news organization that's based in the Pacific Northwest. They actually did a promotional video for us on the I think it was the oil train issue. It's been a few years now, but they did a whole special. They're kind of like the 60 Minutes. I think the way they describe themselves is, we're 60 Minutes for skateboarders. That's how I think they describe themselves, and they're called Vice News. So.
I'm embarrassed. What channel is Vice on?
I actually don't know. I think they're just an online.
Online, yes. Okay.
They might have a local access up in Seattle or something. I'm sorry about my ignorance on it. I don't know. I brought them up and I don't know all the specifics. But
Yeah. How about what's most important nowadays to pay attention to, other than your particular acts?
Yeah, well, yeah. In terms of what we've been talking about, I would say I don't think it's probably changed all that much as to what is important to listen to. Maybe it's been made more of a point because of what's going on at the national level, but so many people have become focused on Trump and become focused at the national level that I'm worried they might be forgetting about action at the local level. And when we lose on the national level, like we did with this last presidential election, that makes it even more important to get involved and take action locally on the local level. Most people don't even know about their county commission, much less have ever been to a county commission meeting. And that's one of the most important places you can go to make a difference in your area and your life. City council, of course, but that's a little bit more known to people. But city councils, county commissions, people need to get involved in those. And sometimes they're boring, and sometimes it's a pain to go and deal with those bureaucracies. But if you want to make a difference, that's one of the most powerful places an individual can make a difference in our society. So.
I'd like to interject.
Yeah, go
just
for it.
because I might not remember later.
We're going to switch over to you anyhow.
But I just wanted to add to that that there are oftentimes councils, advisory councils for these county commissions and city councils.
Yeah.
So if you aren't in a place where you can take time during the day to go to these meetings or go and meet with city councilors or county commissioners, and you want to be involved on an advisory level and help the decision makers make their decisions, have more influence over that, then you can participate in county commission meetings. So there'll be like a county commission on public engagement or youth engagement, and it's a great way to, and these are meetings that happen in the evening oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that you can do kind of extracurricularly and find out what's happening and be more focused about what you're interested in. So if you're interested in education, then you can join that commission and focus there on that committee.
And perhaps they'll listen to you because you're showing up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, shall we switch gears now?
Sure.
Yeah.
You
Sure.
ready? Okay. If I would ask your best friend, who is Nakisha, what would your best friend say? Nakisha is, be your best friend.
Laura?
Well, there's Laura, and here in Portland, I also think of my friend Virginia.
What would Virginia say about you?
So
Virginia would say Nakisha is what?
I think that she would say, and she's
Be
one
her.
of the best people that I know. So she sees the best in everybody. So I think she would say Nakisha is someone who is very nurturing and cares a lot about the bits of people that people tend to hide away from the public,
Okay.
and really interested in getting to know people on a more deeper level and finding ways to bring out the leadership and the joy, connect what they're doing in their daily lives with what they really care about. I think she and others have definitely referred to me as being tenacious. She'd probably say, when she sees something or cares about an issue impacting her community or her friends, she will pursue that and will stop at nothing until she gets there.
Is her perception of you reasonable or accurate?
Oh, I don't think so.
That's all fun.
We know it's true.
Yeah.
By the look in your eyes, I know about looking.
Thank you. Thank you.
And when and where were you born?
I was born in the 70s, late 70s, in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really remember anything about New Mexico. I wasn't there long. after New Mexico, I think we were in California. So I lived in California for some short period of time and then bounced around quite a bit. My mom was in the Air Force when I was born, and so was my father. And then they split up, and there was trials and tribulations, and
Yes.
and I didn't get to know my father until I was graduating from college. But I grew up with my mom and my dad, my stepdad. He's my dad.
Sure.
And my dad was in the Air Force also. So when they met and married, she left the Air Force, and we got to move around quite a bit, and lived in California, Texas, Colorado, Panama, Canada, pretty much in that order.
Military brat.
I am a military brat. Yeah, I'm proud about it too. Militarism is a real problem, but there's a lot that I got to learn informally by being a military brat.
How did you get that coloration? Yeah, what's your
My ethnic background?
Yes.
It's still a mystery. Both my parents are black, but my father has done some work, a lot of research with his family into our background, and I definitely have some Choctaw ancestors, and I think probably some white ancestors from Canada and London. But it's really hard because you can't really see the picture. So we look at the birth certificates and the marriage certificates, and we see where they're from, but that doesn't necessarily indicate what their racial background is, unless it's clearly indicated
I brought it
there.
down for me. I'm red, white, and black. Separate way to put it.
Yeah,
Not necessarily in that order.
That's probably
And the reason I
accurate.
asked you the question is because you look like one of my daughters,
Oh,
or
okay.
one of my granddaughters. My wife is Creole from New Orleans, like I am too. And I think it's Choctaw, but I'm not sure which. We've gotten some information about some of it, but a lot of it we lost because in New Orleans, the children came out light enough, then the parents wouldn't tell them that there was any black, and pretty soon they'd be passing and they'd be white.
That is a story that we share. Yeah, that's a story in my family.
Yeah. So let's back to what we're talking about. Religious preference. Are you an atheist or an atheist?
Or something else.
I'm closer to one of those. I am very spiritual in nature. So
What does that mean, spiritual?
So for me, it means that I think that there is something really a lot greater than myself that plays a role in my life and in the life of people that I love. I don't think of it as a God. I definitely don't think that there is a God. But I'm constantly in awe by what I see in nature. And so I just think energetically, I can't really put it in words. I just know how I feel.
Very few people try to.
and I really don't actually try to, because I know how I feel and I'm happy with that. And I think religion has played an important and beneficial role in my life, with my family, my parents, my grandparents. But organized religion, I also see something that's been very harmful to African communities, and still is. And so that's why I shy away from worshiping any deities that are kind of professed to be gods by cultures that are colonizing our worlds and our communities, and yeah, that's not where I really see order coming into out of the chaos that we have.
Yeah. It's interesting how he looks at you as you're talking.
Oh,
It's beautiful. It's just beautiful.
It's probably really confused.
was I staring again?
What is she saying?
I dig it.
And your formal education. Got some of that?
I do. So I went to Texas A&M University and majored in bioenvironmental science.
Mm-hmm.
And then after graduating, I worked for 3 years in an environmental consulting firm, and then for 3.5 years, Texas Campaign for the Environment. That's actually how we met. So I was canvassing, going door to door, grassroots organizing communities on electronic waste issues, and I did
Door to door.
Door to door. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that was a
got
lot of
something
fun.
special to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience that I cherish, and whenever I'm feeling like I can't do something, I just remember that I did that for 3.5 years. So,
Are you working now?
and I moved from the canvassing job to work for an environmental law firm in Austin, Texas, and I did that for 6 years, and went and got my graduate degree here at Portland State University after that.
In what?
It was Leadership for Sustainability Education.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We talked about children and grandchildren, didn't we?
No children. We do have 2 dogs that are like
Yeah.
our kids. So
What kind of dogs are they?
one is a red heeler mixed with Rhodesian Ridgeback,
Uh-huh.
and then the other is a border collie, we think, mixed with
Some kind of terrier,
some sort of
probably
terrier.
probably a pit bull because they're so numerous.
Yeah.
Memberships in political, social, or civic organizations, any of those you care to mention for the viewers?
Sure. So I am involved with Portland African American Leadership Forum. I'm the committee, the chair of the Environmental Justice Committee.
Okay.
And that's an ad hoc committee that's focusing on making sure that African American communities have leadership in decision making on environmental issues. I'm also a board member for the Emerging Leaders Board of the Oregon Environmental Council,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a nonprofit organization that does a lot of work, advocacy on air and water quality issues, land use issues. And I'm wrapping up my participation in the Land Use Leadership Initiative for 1,000 Friends of Oregon.
You're going to run for political office?
I'm not, no.
We need people like you
No,
in
I'm not.
politics.
No. I really, I got involved with these organizations because after moving from Austin, Texas to Portland and going to grad school, I felt like I was really in a grad school bubble after I graduated, and didn't know Portland as much as I wanted to. And so I started networking and reaching out, going to events and talking to people, interviewing for jobs as well. And as a result of that, started finding organizations that did work that resonated with me, that fit with my values, and found ways to get involved with them.
Mm-hmm. Persons from the past or alive today, any names come to mind of people that you look up to or looked up to?
So Frida Kahlo was the Mexican painter, is definitely a heroine for me. I think at a young age, I was struck by her perseverance and that tenacity that she had. That she had struggles, just like everyone. Not exactly like everyone, but we all struggle. And the way that she dealt with it was just inspiring for me. Wangari Maathai is another woman that I really look up to.
Say a few words about her.
So she won the Nobel Peace Prize,
Yes.
and African woman who started the Green Belt movement and really found a way to amplify the voices of women in her community, and was a real force in making change. Vandana Shiva. So these are folks I also got to read more about when I was in grad school. So those are the top names. There's more, but yeah.
Did I ask you about your heroes?
I just talked about ones living today, along the lines of Wangari Maathai. Maathai or Maathai?
It might be Matai.
Ken Saro-Wiwa, who was a Nigerian activist who was executed by the warlord, and Shell colluded in his execution, we believe. Let's see, other dead heroes of mine. A lot of writers. Not to be cliche, but Henry David Thoreau had a big impression on me when I was young. Walden and Civil Disobedience, which is a short, almost pamphlet that he wrote when he was in prison for for refusing to pay his taxes, and he wrote about civil disobedience and
someone in the control room was making a sign that I'm supposed to take a break. Okay.
Oh, we're supposed to take a break.
Take a break in there, will ya?
Oh.
Okay, we're back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like my two guests now about who they are and what we'll be talking about tonight, friends of the Columbia Gorge and Sierra Club and those kinds of things. So we better get started because we're running out of time already, okay? Yeah. Who's going to lead off on what's important to talk about right now?
Do you want me to go first, Ian?
Sure.
All right. Feel free to butt in, though, if we're taking up too much time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, do you just want me to swing into it? Did you have any questions? Yeah. Okay. Well, getting back to kind of what we said at the beginning about local action and local activity and getting involved, that's, as an organizer and an activist, that's really what I try to encourage people to do the most is, you know, and people feel, I think, helpless a lot of the time, daunted by what's going on. And really, you just need to get out there and get a little bit involved, even if it's just doing one thing a month for a couple of hours. Just something to get out there, get involved, start impacting the world in the way you want it to be seen. So I've got a bunch of upcoming events that we're working on that are opportunities for people to get involved on the local level. Hopefully they'll be putting up a slate for you later where you can see the times and dates of all these things. But the first one, and it's probably going to happen before this even airs, but is this Thursday. We're going to the Washington State Capitol in Olympia, and we're going to be delivering over 1.3 million signatures to Governor Inslee against the permitting of new oil and coal terminals throughout the state of Washington. In particular, there's an oil terminal proposed for Vancouver, Washington, not British Columbia, which would be the largest oil terminal in North America if it were built. We've been fighting that for years, and the reason why Friends of the Gorge is so involved is because all the trains that would haul oil to that facility would all go through the Columbia River Gorge National Scenic Area. We already have about 2 or 3 oil trains a day moving through. These are huge, long, massive trains over a mile long, over 100 cars each.
Well, what are we going to do about energy if you shut down those resources?
Well, this energy isn't even for us. This oil is being drilled for in North Dakota. They're shipping it to coastal tank farms, loading it onto ships and sending it overseas.
They need to make a profit, don't they?
I don't think so.
Let me stop this. You know I'm a phony.
No, I feed off this. But the interesting thing is that there used to be a law that was on the books for 40 years nationally that made it illegal to export U.S. produced crude oil. But last year, Congress lifted that law and that embargo. So now crude oil can be exported from the United States.
Even before Trump took over.
Even before Trump took over. So that's why we think these terminals really are being proposed. It's not for domestic energy consumption, it's for foreign. But to answer your question, even if it was for domestic energy consumption, we already have a massive network of infrastructure committed to the extraction, refinement, and burning and disposing of the waste of fossil fuels in this country. If we're going to do something about climate change and global warming and the pollution associated with it, we need to be shifting to renewable energy. And the way you do that is with new infrastructure development. So the last thing we should be doing is committing new infrastructure to oil terminals or coal terminals. We need to be investing our new infrastructure in renewable energy.
Isn't the present administration interested in continuing the efforts of the extractive industries?
Oh yes, very much. Trump is totally supportive of the fossil fuel industry and has no interest. I don't even think he's ever feigned interest in renewable energy. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone can find a clip of him claiming he supports some sort of renewable energy, but I wouldn't believe it for a second. But that's again why it's so important for people to get involved on the local level, because the person who has the final say in this oil terminal is not Trump, it's Governor Inslee right here in Washington. So if you can come out to the state capitol in Olympia this Thursday, although that'll probably be after this has aired. But there's a lot more going on. Can I just go down the list here?
Please do, yeah. I won't interrupt you too much.
Great. So there's so much going on, and really you don't have to come to everything. Even just one of these things would be great. But the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, is going to be having a hearing on Monday, May 15th, about a proposal by PGE to expand their existing natural gas power plant out in Boardman. They want to double the size of their natural gas power plant, methane gas power plant.
This is in Oregon.
In Oregon, yes.
Yeah.
It's the location where Oregon's last coal-burning power plant is, but that's scheduled for shutdown in 2020. They want to compensate for that shutdown by building big methane gas turbine units. And we would rather they not invest in that new fossil fuel infrastructure and invest in renewable energy instead. So again, that's Monday, May 15th at 6.
You got a lot of work cut out for you.
Yeah. We're also having, Friends of the Gorge is having our quarterly event, Gorge on Tap, this time in Washougal, Washington, on Thursday, May 18th at 6:30 p.m. at 5440 Brewing Company. That's at 3801 South Truman Road. You can, if you go there, have a drink at 5440. We're actually working in conjunction with that brewery to release a new beer that's just for us. They're calling it Preserve the Wonder, which is a land campaign we're running right now. Friends also is a landowner out in the gorge, and we work to conserve the land.
Where do you get your money to do all these things?
People, citizens out in the gorge who are either landowners themselves out in the gorge or just live near the gorge, who care about it and who want to protect it. We're almost, not 100%, but I guess probably around 90% funded by individuals who are just members and want to give money to help us conserve. So, yeah.
I'm feeling guilty. I haven't contributed to you for a while.
Oh, it's okay. It's just everybody doing whatever they can, you know, that's what gets it done. So, but yeah, Preserve the Wonder is the name of the beer, and it's also the name of the land campaign. We want to buy 7 different properties out in the gorge to protect them either for wildlife conservation or for recreation. And you can learn more about that at Gorge on Tap. There's also going to be an anniversary event for the Mosier oil train disaster out in Mosier on Saturday, June 3rd at 12 noon, right at the Mosier School, the Mosier Community School. Again. That's in Oregon again.
We're worldwide, you know. We have to be sure to specify.
Yes, yes. And then Wednesday, June 7th, there will be an air permit hearing for that Tesoro Savage oil terminal in Vancouver that I was talking about. That'll start at 1, and that'll be in Geyser Hall at Clark College. But that's right across the river in Vancouver. And then finally, there's also going to be a hearing on the Union Pacific Rail expansion, which is something else we've been dealing with and fighting for a long time. They want to expand their rail siding through Mosier so they can send more trains at a faster speed right by the place where an oil train derailed and almost blew up the whole town. So there's going to be an appellate hearing on that expansion on June 13th. But that's way out in the Dalles. Most people probably can't get to that. But if you go to our website, gorgefriends.org, we've got a calendar there. You can follow all the work we're doing. Subscribe to our action alerts. I only send out a few emails a month, but it's always for important events like this, where you can go and have your voice heard or send in comments through the internet to put pressure on our elected officials and regulators to say no to these dirty projects and yes to a clean, renewable future. That's what I do.
Yeah. So what do you think?
Sounds good to me.
I'm going to jump way ahead of here.
Sure.
The doomsday clock has been moved a half minute closer to midnight. Union of Concerned Scientists.
Yeah.
Do you think it should be moved closer to midnight, or
correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the closest it's ever been, right? Isn't that true?
for many, many years?
For since the Cuban Missile Crisis or something.
Yes.
Something like that. I don't know. Probably not. That's another great organization that I support a lot, Union of Concerned Scientists. I trust them with that doomsday clock. I think they have a pretty level head about these sorts of things. Trump is one of the probably the most dangerous leader we've ever had in this country's history. I'm very, very concerned about him. But at the same time, I'm also hopeful that the people aren't going to let him get away with anything too insane. Most people, I think, recognize him for what he is, and they're fighting back, en masse. So I'm still hopeful for the future, and I'm not too worried that we're all going to perish in a nuclear war of Trump's making. But we'll see. We got to keep an eye on it and do everything we can to prevent that from happening. But I think we can.
I can't remember his name, but a professor, I think, has been accurate in predicting the outcome of presidential elections in this country since the 60s.
I think I've heard of that, yeah.
Yeah. And he predicts that Trump will be impeached.
I certainly hope so. Hope it happens next week.
But the thing is, he will double down again and redouble, and will not go gracefully.
Yeah, and then we'd be stuck with Pence, too. So you got to impeach the whole darn lot of them, not just Trump. But, yeah, we'll see.
Revolution.
Yeah. Hopefully a peaceful one.
What's the likelihood of there being an American revolt, revolution, or one of those kinds of descriptions of what's going to happen in America to have things change? What's going to happen to us in the next 10 or 20 years?
Do you want to take that one?
No. I don't have a crystal ball, so. But I agree that with Ryan's assessment that this election, the results of this election, have really, I think, reinvigorated a lot of folks who thought that everything was okay and realized that it's not, and that even if we do impeach this official, that does not do really anything to address the root causes of how it is that he came to be where he is, even leading up to this last year. So I think it's really important for folks, as they're getting more involved and responding to calls to action, and really recognizing that the time is now, that means taking a look at our current economy, recognizing that it's an extractive economy that is based on exploiting people and resources and keeping wealth in the hands of the few, and that we've got to work to find a just transition that creates a more resilient and regenerative economy where we're cooperating, we're coordinating with one another, we're really focusing on local solutions like you've been talking about, and finding ways to create systems that replace this extractive economy.
What's going to happen to global warming?
What's going to happen to it?
With global warming, will it continue getting warmer? Or
for the foreseeable future, yeah. Mm-hmm. There's nothing we can do to stop it.
We're long past 350, huh?
It's like trying to.
We're well past 400.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about something joyful before this evening is over. What about racism? Is racism...
Real quick, though, on
Yes,
that, I
please.
would like to plug a movie I just saw and did a little presentation at
Please.
called Chasing Coral. It's made by some of the same people who made the great documentary Chasing Ice, which you may have seen. They're both of them, Chasing Ice and Chasing Coral. If you're interested in documentaries about global warming, those are brilliant and worth your time. Chasing Ice looks at the state of glaciers in the world, which are receding at an alarming rate. It's one of
Yes.
the best indicators of global warming. Chasing Coral is looking at the world's coral reefs, which is
Oh my
probably the
God.
second best indicator of global warming.
Mhm.
And basically over half of all the world's coral reefs have already died because of global warming, and the rest are well on their way to extinction. So I just wanted to say that to tie off the global warming conversation. But please continue to, you wanted to shift gears to
I'm
racism.
so depressed.
Sorry.
No, it's scary because
It is
I
scary.
find I have to make an effort to do something different because I run this show and a few other activities I have that are progressive or left wing for a long, long time. And during the Vietnam War, I used to watch down Wilshire Boulevard in L.A. with my 5 daughters protesting and trying to avoid the motorcyclists who were going to crash our protest marches. So that's my history of being a protester, a leftist. So I've got to be sure I interrupt my normal day to have something to distract me from.
Everybody
these
deserves
things
that, yeah.
Yeah. So what else shall we talk about now?
You wanted to bring up racism? Something like that?
Yes. Do you think there's racism is better in this country now than it was 10, 20, 50 years ago? I watched the movie Race on TV the other night, Jesse Owens and the Berlin Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, it took me back my childhood because I'm old enough to remember how things were in New Orleans when I was growing up. Of course, in New Orleans, we had 3 different races when I was growing up. There was a colored, the white, and the Creoles.
It was a whole different category.
Different social lives and different lives and different activities and different clubs and bars and like that. And anyhow, I see things are changing in some ways. In other ways, they're going backwards, like the police shooting down black youth. What do you think?
Well, I think it's better than it was 50 years ago. I don't think it's better than it was 10 years ago. I think that people have the power to change this system, to really crush oppression and racism and other forms of oppression. I think I'm very much a proponent of a just transition, which I've spoken about a little bit already by speaking here on our extractive economy and how we can transition to one that is more regenerative. And this is, everybody working in our field right now talks a lot about transitioning away from fossil fuels to renewables. And by talking about how we do this in a way that's just and equitable, we're recognizing the interconnections between institutional oppression, racism, sexism, and how our institutions are just perpetuating these systems, and finding pathways that really provide real solutions. So the work that I'm doing now, I started working at Sierra Club as a climate justice organizer in February, and I love it there. I'm seeing how this is an organization that's really driven by its volunteers, by people who are working at their local level based on their values and what they're concerned about, and they can come to Sierra Club and say, this is an issue that we need to tackle, and Sierra Club is providing tools for folks to recognize their power and develop their leadership in their communities and with one another. So that's, we work a lot with Friends of the Columbia Gorge and other organizations working on a lot of these same events that Ryan has mentioned earlier. My work has been focused recently on organizing the People's Climate Movement March, which we just held here on April 29th, and it was amazing. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had, seeing over 3,000 people, 3,500 people come out and march. But I think more importantly, really recognizing that climate justice is really related to all of these different forms of oppression that we've been talking about and that you're concerned about. So militarism, food security, housing affordability, these are all things that can be addressed by climate justice. One of the other projects I'm working on is related to providing solutions for these problems. So it's right now I'm part of a campaign, a Clean Energy Jobs campaign, and we are working together in coalition to put a cap on greenhouse gas emissions, price those emissions, and then use the proceeds from that to reinvest in our communities. And this is something that's affecting all Oregonians.
Of course.
Climate change is increasing our snow melt, increasing how warm our rivers are, and that affects our economy, fishermen and women, tourism, skiing. This is a $13 billion a year industry that employs 141,000 people. And people who are hit first and worst by climate change have an opportunity through a campaign like this to see redress from this dig and burn economy. So the proceeds from a cap and trade system, cap, trade, and invest system, can be invested in our communities of color, tribal communities, low-income neighborhoods. This is something that will provide $700 million a year, and that's based on programs we've seen elsewhere. So in California, this is happening, and it's having really important impacts in people's daily lives. So that's how I go from racism to what are we going to do? How do we not kind of go home and crawl into our beds and weep ourselves to sleep? Really find ways to impact change at a local level by making those who are causing these problems pay for it, and then using that to invest in solutions for us to get us away from that fossil fuel economy.
So the Trump administration could probably be a catalyst to have ordinary citizens respond in a way to change things going in the other direction. Can we have things change enough so that we can reduce the number of bases Americans have all over the globe? I jumped on you on that one.
No, you did, because as a military brat, you know, there's definitely that core of me that's like, but military bases have, yeah, I think,
and then immigration
absolutely,
too,
and I think what can happen is that people in the military, people in communities talk about, okay, how can we actually be of service to lift up these communities instead of acting on behalf of an elite few who want resources from this part of the world, and really find ways to develop leadership more and step back and instead of being a military base, be a hub for a community.
We have about 2 minutes left.
Oh gosh, time
what
flies.
shall we do with these last 2 minutes or so?
Well, wrapping up on the military discussion, I think, like everything else, the U.S. spends more money on our military than the next 7 countries combined.
Yeah.
So it's just an enormous waste of money, and I think it's fueled by 2 things: fear, and the other is just wanting to be the strongest and the best at something. And so that's something we need to address if we're ever going to accomplish a de-escalation of violence in the world, because there's other dangerous people who are armed and angry and want to hurt people, but we need to take responsibility for ourselves first and start ramping that down. And as we do that, I think you'll see militarism worldwide will ramp down if the world's only remaining superpower at the moment. ramps its military down. So not saying we should get rid of every gun and bomb immediately, but start ramping it down. And in terms of nuclear weapons, we need to be dismantling them as fast as possible, whether other countries have them or not.
And facilities.
Will you take about 30 seconds or so to look at that camera and tell the
Sure.
viewers what you want to, the final message you want to leave for them?
All right, so I would like folks to realize that they do have the power to make changes in their lives and to really take time to reflect on what it is they care about, what their values are, and whether or not the things they're doing, the activities they're engaged in, the work that they do is in alignment with those values. And if not, to find organizations like Sierra Club, like Friends of the Columbia Gorge, and get involved and figure out ways to develop leadership for yourself and for your community.
You have 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Right over there?
There's the camera.
All right. Yeah, I'd basically mirror what Nikisha just said and say, hopefully they'll throw that slate up again for you for the events that are coming up. Just get out there and get involved. I know people are busy. I know your time is precious. It's the most valuable thing you can give is your time. But even just getting involved once a month, even to at least to start, get out there, find something that speaks to you. It doesn't have to be Friends, doesn't have to be Sierra Club, but find something that speaks to you and get involved here on the local level because it will make a difference.
And we need another 2 hours. We got to stop. Okay, any public service announcements before we say goodbye to my friends? To get my show broadcast, the local broadcast schedule, go to www.donbaham.com and click on present day activities. Get the local broadcast schedule there. And to watch my shows on the web right now, Google Don Baham YouTube. There's hundreds of shows on there, and I've interviewed all sorts of people, all kinds through the years. And you have a good time. Check 1 or 2. And the ACLU, I've always finishing with the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, because civil liberties are going down the tubes more and more nowadays with present administration in Washington. ACLU, I've been a member now for 3,000 years, or so it seems. And thanks for watching, and remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable. To you too. Especially you. And you. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching.